What's up, everybody? It's your boy Wings of Redemption, and I'm back, and I'm bringing you an audio commentary today on Black Ops. And what I wanted to talk about on Black Ops is something, well, even if you're young, even if you have no experience in driving whatsoever, you can pretty much tell me what the main stress of money is in the basic average household, and it's gasoline. Gasoline is something that everybody needs, everybody has to have. And cars, unless you live in like certain areas of the country, are a necessity more than a privilege. And car companies answer to gas. Instead of making better fuel efficient engines or making cars more aerodynamic, their answer is to make electric cars or electric and gas hybrid type cars. And I wanted to go ahead and say this is not the answer. You might be thinking, well, how's an electric car not the answer? It takes away smog, helps the ozone layer. Well, it does do all of those kind of things, but the fact is, it also does another thing. Electricity is another resource that we cannot renew. Coal is also, just like oil, is unrenewable and is actually a dirtier resource altogether. And we already run electricity in our homes, we run electricity on our iPhones and our computers and batteries. There's so many things that we use electricity for, and then all of a sudden we're going to start passing on our fuel consumption right into the electricity market as well. Basically what you're doing is you're passing the buck. You're not solving a problem, you're solving a problem the government set out to do. The reason car companies are pushing electric cars so much is because they have this quota, this mandate to have a certain miles per gallon average on all of their vehicles in their lineup by the year, so many years. And they don't want to lose money, so they're actually trying to make cars that can outweigh like their big heavy truck frames and actually get better gas mileage that way. Even though it's a good bill altogether, but who's to say that somebody couldn't just drop the truck out of existence in whatever year that they designed to have this mandate done and then just run off like their electric cars? The car companies don't care about the environment. The car companies don't care about a renewable resource. All car companies care about is profit margin. And that's why electric cars go so well in that situation. They're good at getting a lot of miles per gallon over very little gasoline. Because that's what they do. They don't use gasoline. But the fact is, electricity is horrible to run our cars off of for the main reason that it's another unrenewable resource that we're going to use up at an even faster rate that's going to pollute the air even worse from extra factories processing coal. Coal is what makes electricity for the most part. And let's just go and talk about other alternative fuels while we're at it and why a lot of things won't work. Another waste of fucking time is ethanol. Why is ethanol a waste of time? Other than the fact it does not have the same energy rating as gasoline. If anybody ever has a flex fuel or a car capable of taking ethanol 100%, you'll know what I'm talking about. Ethanol will get you about half the miles per gallon as a regular gallon of gasoline. And they started putting ethanol in regular gasoline to kind of like dilute it and actually get less miles per gallon that way too. And it also eats up your fuel pump. Have you ever changed a fuel pump in a car that has been running that 10% ethanol or in some cases 20% ethanol? Hell, some of the engines that we have nowadays can't take 20% ethanol. Hell, I just bought a brand new truck, and that brand new truck can't take 20% ethanol. So if they ever start issuing only 20% ethanol gasoline, my truck might be worthless because the most my engine could take is 10% ethanol. So if they decide to start doing that, they can almost kick that in effect and make you buy more cars that way. Why is ethanol a joke? Why is it a waste of time? It isn't just because of the less energy rating. It's because it takes more gasoline to create a gallon of ethanol than it makes. So and that's a negative. So if it takes you, let's just go ahead and use this in gasoline terms. If it would take you a gallon of gasoline to make a gallon of gasoline, you're not getting any profit. If it takes a gallon of gasoline to make half a gallon of gasoline, then you're making profit. Well, ethanol, it takes like a gallon and a half of ethanol to make 1 gallon of ethanol. Thus means it's a waste of time and resources. You're making ethanol, yes, but you're using more energy to make ethanol than the ethanol makes itself. So it's a losing situation. I mean, the only way you can have a renewable resource or resources itself is to do it in a way that it doesn't use energy such as ethanol. And like John Deere tractors and things like that, they use diesel and stuff like that. So the only alternative is to make a tractor capable of pulling plows through dirt, or even to step back and go back to the mule, which we're not going to go back to the mule to make ethanol itself. And even then, cars will skyrocket. Ethanol's prices will skyrocket if you have to start muling the fields, because at that point, it's a harder commodity. It's rare. It's not made in mass production anymore. And the only way that we can do and get through this resource crisis is, one, find an alternative mode of transportation, or two, find an actual renewable resource, something like the wind, something like the sun, something that's abundant that we can never run out of. Well, we can run out of the sun, and we can run out of, I don't know if we can run out of the wind. I don't know the logistics of that. But the sun has like such a long period, you wouldn't have to really worry about it. And solar powered is probably the way we'd have to go. A solar powered car, blah 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 blah, and just limit our night driving to a minimum. But solar powered wouldn't last that long either, because you'd have no range. You'd pretty much limit the freight of the world. And that's another thing that you have to worry about, freight of the world. How are trucks going to get to all the food lines? How are trucks going to, pull those heavy trailers? How are trucks going to do this? What is the energy of sun? Like, how much power can the sun put out? If you ever look back at cars beforehand, before we redefined gasoline engines to what they are today, gasoline engines used to have like 100 horsepower and be like V12s. How is that even possible? Well, it was possible because the gasoline was so poorly engineered that it had very low energy rating. So those V12 engines, which nowadays would put out 700 horsepower, used to put out 100. What are your guys' opinion on renewable resources? Let me know. What's up, Playboys? I'm doing this on a rut, and I'm doing this on the actual YouTube web thing. But I just wanted to go ahead and talk about the electric cars and how they how my latest video is doing so poorly with the like and dislike ratio. And a lot of people seem to say I don't know what I'm understanding. So I figured I'd go and try to spell it out more clearly. A lot of people thought that I was unaware that electricity is a renewable resource, and they list stuff like hydro mills, nuclear power plants, water, wind, so on and so forth. Well, those are renewable resources. So in a way, it is a renewable resource. But what I'm saying is the volume that we need electricity in is not renewable in those mannerisms. Have you ever tried solar power? It takes forever to heat something up. Forever. Like forever and a day. And it's something you have to wait around on. And let me go ahead and use this kind of scenario here. Let's say I got to go to Charleston, and the car I'm going to drive is a Nissan Leaf. Alright, the Nissan Leaf has a 200-mile range on it. That's 200 miles on one charge of the batteries. Charleston is 110 miles away from my house. So when I get to Charleston, I'm going to need to fill up. Be it however long it takes for the electric car to fill up. An hour, 10 minutes, I don't know. I've never drove an electric car before. But I do know this, that there's not going to be a pump station. There's not going to be somebody refining it out of a solar windmill. There's not going to be anything of that nature sitting at that pump station. What's going to be at that pump station is an electric outlet that I plug into, which is going to run off coal energy. And the reason we run it off coal energy is because it makes it in an abundant quantity. Let me tell you a story. I used to work at a company that we had these big 40-ton melters, and to turn one of these 40-ton melters on would cost us somewhere around the ballpark of $60,000 worth of electricity. And since it requires so much electricity to turn these melters on, we would have to call Santee Cooper in advance and let them know, hey, we got to turn one of these melters on. Can you go ahead and prepare the grid? Because they actually had to prepare the power grid to withstand the amount of electricity that we took to turn that one melter on. Well, what happens when that one melter gets 1.5 million cars put on that same grid with it at the same time? Everybody loses power. Everybody. I get these brochures in the mail all the time talking about saving power, turning lights off, and blah 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 blah, because they can't keep up with electricity needs. What happens when all these 8-9 million worth of cars we have sitting in the United States have to start running off electricity? What happens then? Well, let's go into more theatrics. What happens with tires? Tires are made out of oil. Plastic is made out of oil. All these other variables that are made out of oil that go onto electric cars. I mean, just not just run it itself or lubricate it. Um, Petroleum is really hard to replace, and the fact is we have to start rationing it just for that fact that we have to keep making tires and lubrication parts from basically oil. So instead of using electric cars, which has a renewable resource, why don't we use the most abundant resource in the fucking world? What is it? Come on, kids. You've been to physical science. It's hydrogen. You make hydrogen from water. What is water? H2O, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. And the fact is, here's the kicker. Hydrogen atoms are split further apart. So in outer space, hydrogen exists. Hell, most of outer space is hydrogen in a vacuum. So we could just suck hydrogen right out of fucking outer space and keep running it. And here's the kicker. Hydrogen burns water. At the end of the day, hydrogen has oxygen, turns to fucking water vapor. There's no smog. There's nothing of this nature. There's no coal to burn. There's very little refinement process. Hydrogen would be the key. And like, what's the big problems with the hydrogen? What's the big problems altogether? Well, you need a particle accelerator, which is considered criminal. Basically, the stuff that you need to make hydrogen at your own home, which is another problem that people don't want you to do. They don't want you to make hydrogen. Is that you need something that's required to make a nuke or a hydrogen bomb. Hydrogen bombs will be more readily available to the public because of using hydrogen as a fuel source, which is again against the law. The fact that somebody can make hydrogen on their own and not have a company sell it to them would also be something they wouldn't like, and why they're steering clear of it versus electricity. I mean, yes, you can make electricity at your house on your own, but like I said, it's a slow process. And people nowadays live life in the fast lane. Most people can't even watch a movie that has dialogue on it. Do you expect them to wait 2 hours for their electric car to charge? It's what it is. But the idea that the electric car is going to solve things, it's not going to solve anything. It doesn't solve the big truck problem. Electricity doesn't put enough power units through to actually run like a big truck, like a semi-truck pulling, 60,000 pounds or 100,000 pounds. And those trucks stopping would be the downfall of America much quicker than running out of fossil fuels. Yes, I understand that electricity is a renewable resource, but I also understand that hydrogen is an abundant resource. And when I mean abundant, we'll never run out of it. Humans are more likely to live thousands of generations and die before hydrogen is used up, because the entire galaxy is made of hydrogen. I mean, what are the bases? There's carbon, hydrogen. I forgot what the other one is. I'm being dumb right now. But there's like 3 main elements in the universe, and hydrogen is one of them. And hydrogen fuel cells would make a car that costs like $1 million, but guess what? That's because nobody's making hydrogen cars. When you start making more of a product, it gets cheaper. Like for example, like the iPhone 4S right now is like $100, but when it launched, it was like $800. And if you launched the iPhone 4S back in like 1970, it'd be like $500,000. But the fact is, supply and demand. I just wanted to go and clarify this, and trying to get my position out there. Peace.